First decide who you are willing to become, then act in alignment with that decision. The former version of you will not disappear quietly. It will linger into this year and the next, speaking through exhaustion, tempting you with postponement, disguising weakness as logic. It will suggest that discipline can be delayed, that comfort is harmless, that rest must be earned later. That version of you survives for one reason only: to keep you unchanged. Every morning it waits for permission to return. Every day you must refuse it. This is not about improvement. This is about elimination, the deliberate dismantling of an identity built on ease. It will feel brutal, because rebirth is never gentle. When distraction is removed, truth becomes audible. When indulgence is denied, fragility reveals itself. You begin to see how much of who you thought you were was shaped by convenience. How much potential was exchanged for comfort. The Stoic does not retreat from this exposure. They understand that clarity is born through pain and order through confrontation. The former self must be dismantled everywhere, publicly, privately, mentally, habitually. This is the year you stop managing impulses and start commanding behavior. No more waiting for motivation. No more excusing failure. No more bargaining with emotion. Each disciplined action engraves a new identity. Every repetition erases decay. The objective is not self-development. It is self-removal. You are not here to feel better. You are here to become unreachable. You are here to outgrow the version of you that relied on comfort. The collapse of the old self begins quietly. It does not announce itself. It deteriorates internally. A mind that once accepted ease begins to recognize corruption. Habits once tolerated now feel poisonous. This realization marks the beginning of transformation. The moment the individual understands that a disciplined life requires the death of the former identity. Most never reach this awareness. They remain trapped in repetition, clinging to routines that feel safe, while dissolving their will. The Stoics called this condition sleep, a fog where one believes they are living while merely reacting. To overcome the former self, it must first be observed without distortion. Every weakness, every compromise, every indulgence must be exposed. Truth cannot be negotiated. The mind must face itself honestly. Change begins when comfort becomes unbearable, when excuses lose credibility, when it becomes clear that suffering is not caused by the external world, but by the absence of internal command. Discipline then reveals itself not as restriction, but as liberation. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the obstacle becomes the path. Here, the obstacle is the former self. To conquer it, one must confront it directly. The mind resists this war. It defends old habits with clever reasoning, pleads for rest, masks indulgence as wisdom. The Stoic treats these thoughts as intrusions. To yield once is to rebuild what must be destroyed. The old identity negotiates endlessly. Only relentless awareness and execution dissolve it. Order must replace chaos. The morning must begin before desire speaks. The body must act before the mind debates. Routine becomes the first defense. Seneca warned that we suffer more in imagination than reality. This is where weakness hides. Imagined fatigue, false limits, the illusion of a better time to begin. There is no better time. Action is the cure. When the Stoic rises early, it is not for display. It is to impose structure. The action itself reshapes identity. Repetition erodes weakness. This is not inspiration. It is engineering. The mind adapts to consistency. The old self fades through execution without emotion. Discipline purifies hesitation, pity, disorder. Every act is a strike against decay. Transformation is not emotional. It is systematic. Progress is measured in hours reclaimed from distraction. The old self survives in delay. The new one thrives in precision. Modern life feeds weakness through endless stimulation. The Stoic disconnects not to escape reality, but to reclaim authority. Each ignored notification, each hour of solitude is resistance against decay. Silence becomes training. Detachment rebuilds focus. The modern mind seeks comfort. The old self hides behind it. Insisting progress should feel easy. This belief must be destroyed. Pain instructs. Fatigue verifies alignment. Hardship strips illusion. When resistance appears, the fracture begins. This is where the old identity loosens its grip. Life becomes a campaign, each day an operation. The enemy is internal permission. Every indulgence feeds it. Every delay strengthens it. Every decisive act weakens it. The Stoic moves without waiting for feeling. Execution is the standard. Comfort kills, slowly through concession. Discipline rebuilds, through subtraction. Less desire, clear direction. This is mastery. Justification ends. Conduct replaces conversation. Action replaces planning. Identity forms through precision, not declaration. The world praises expression. The Stoic values restraint. The old self speaks. The new self acts. Silence becomes the weapon. Over time, validation loses meaning. Reaction dissolves. The individual becomes immune to misinterpretation. The old self requires attention. In solitude, its voice grows louder. This is where most fail. The Stoic endures. Inner resistance becomes training. Endurance kills old patterns. Each time discipline defeats impulse, decay fractures. The victory is internal. The world may not notice, but order takes root. Sovereignty is built quietly. Isolation becomes necessary. Not everyone will understand. Let them misunderstand. Focus is command. Transformation often appears as withdrawal from those ruled by impulse. Clarity cannot exist in constant noise. The destruction of the old self is repetitive, unseen, uncelebrated. Denial of pleasure, refinement of focus. Progress is alignment, not reward. Each morning asks a question, reaction or command. Identity answers through action. The Stoic no longer seeks praise. Execution is enough. Independence sharpens confidence. When praise loses power, failure does too. Freedom begins where influence ends. Weakness is normalized in modern culture. Discipline is mislabeled cruelty. The Stoic rejects this lie. Strength refines humanity. Emotional control is clarity, not coldness. The old self dramatizes emotion to avoid responsibility. The new self acts with reason. Failure becomes instruction. Regret is used, then discarded. Loss becomes fuel. When principle governs emotion, transformation accelerates. Structure suffocates weakness. Order executes decay. Identity loss is required. Nostalgia must be abandoned. Familiarity must be left behind. Discomfort becomes residence. The body reflects order. Movement sharpens. Posture commands. The shift is visible before it is spoken. Thought must also be rebuilt. Inputs controlled. Attention guarded. The environment curated. Weakness returns disguised as balance. The Stoic sees through it. Precision creates balance. Patience becomes power. Consistency compounds invisibly. What was effort becomes instinct. Temptation is observed, not obeyed. Awareness becomes authority. Seneca wrote that self-possession is supreme power. Fatigue tests identity. Emotion demands rest. Principle demands action. Fatigue becomes proof, not excuse. Identity is forged through repetition. Time purifies. Eventually, discipline becomes equilibrium. The old self sought recognition. The new self hides in order. Control becomes the reward. This is freedom, as taught by Epictetus. Comfort becomes repulsive. Resistance becomes nourishment. Peace exists within effort. Calm within adversity. The work never ends. Vigilance remains. The old identity waits for neglect. The disciplined mind stays alert. Routine defends. Reflection guards. Progress is protected with intensity. The war sharpens. The enemy returns disguised as reason. Rest. Delay. Tomorrow. These are infiltration tactics. The mind becomes a fortress. Thoughts are inspected. Alignment grants entry. Fatigue becomes fuel. Structure outlasts emotion. Precision defines identity. The Stoic becomes a strategist. Nothing accidental. Everything intentional. Sentiment loses control. Memory instructs, not binds. Intensity rises before collapse. The old self burns fiercely before extinction. Endurance decides permanence. Eventually, effort feels natural. Indulgence feels foreign. Discipline becomes instinct. Pride becomes the final threat. Vigilance never relaxes. Emotion no longer fuels action. Principle does. Fear becomes data. Courage dissolves decay. Replacement completes destruction. The old identity fades into abstraction. Only order remains. Each morning asks again, who commands? The answer must be earned. Mastery is revealed through composure under pressure. The Stoic who reaches this level no longer answers adversity with emotion. Their response is structure. Each setback is absorbed, analyzed, and acted upon without internal disturbance. The outside world loses its power to disrupt the inner order. This calm is not emptiness. It is accuracy. It is the ability to remain exact regardless of condition. The endurance of mastery depends on clear values. The disciplined individual knows precisely what they serve. Every action aligns with that purpose. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is scattered. When purpose governs behavior, life becomes unified. The former self dispersed energy across impulse. The refined self concentrates all force into order. Focus becomes identity. To preserve mastery, observation must never stop. The Stoic does not believe permanence means immunity. They examine their conduct as a craftsman examines his work, correcting the smallest flaw. Pride begins decay. Humility maintains strength. Mastery survives only where refinement continues. The modern world rewards noise and display. Mastery grows in silence. The disciplined have no need to announce power. Authority lives in behavior. They remain unaffected by misunderstanding and detached from validation. When strength becomes natural, proving it becomes unnecessary. This separates performance from permanence. Permanence reshapes connection. The mastered mind does not seek to control others. It governs itself. It does not require obedience to feel strong. Influence comes through presence, not persuasion. Calm internal order creates gravity. Others sense it and align naturally. Power that does not seek control becomes the highest influence. The individual stops chasing progress as an event. Progress becomes atmosphere. Each aligned day is victory. There is no finish line because mastery is not an achievement. It is a condition. The mind that understands this loses urgency. It moves with patience, beyond time. Momentum replaces motivation. The work continues without strain because it no longer feels like work. Permanence requires detachment from praise and guilt. The old self swung between both. The refined self remains neutral. Praise does not inflate. Failure does not diminish. This is not apathy. it is stability. Emotion is observed, not followed. The individual operates independent of reward or punishment. Clarity becomes default. Life is no longer filtered through preference, but through principle. Every decision passes through reason before execution. Noise loses authority. Movement becomes slow, precise, effortless. This stillness is not passivity. It is control in its purest form. Solitude becomes companionship, not exile. The Stoic enters silence for maintenance, not escape. Silence resets perspective. Reflection removes distortion. The old self feared solitude because it exposed disorder. The new self seeks it because it reveals alignment. The mastered mind recalibrates to standard. Mastery removes dependence on conditions. Weather, schedule, mood hold no power. Principle governs action regardless of circumstance. This autonomy defines Stoicism. To remain steady while environment shifts is freedom beyond reaction. Permanence proves inner stability amid outer disorder. The old identity was reactive. It required stimulation to act, approval to continue, comfort to persist. The new identity requires none. Action follows principle. Consistency becomes unbreakable. Routine turns sacred. The sacred becomes ordinary. Excellence becomes daily conduct. Time transforms. The undisciplined mind lives in regret or anticipation. The disciplined operates only now. Each moment is execution. The future is built through precision, not projection. Time becomes tool, not shelter. Mastery of the present commands continuity. Energy becomes clean. Nothing leaks through defense or distraction. Composure protects attention. Thought gains purpose. Movement gains weight. Efficiency radiates through refinement. Existence reduces to essentials. Thought, action, principle. Permanence eliminates relapse. The old self relied on intensity. The new relies on standard. Intensity fades. Standard endures. Order no longer needs restoration. It remains. Correction becomes automatic. Discipline becomes identity. The mastered mind directs life instead of resisting it. Challenges become materials. Loss builds resilience. Fatigue builds consistency. Solitude builds depth. Nothing is wasted. Adaptation replaces reaction. Stillness exists within motion. Validation loses value. Alignment satisfies. Praise and blame become information, not instruction. Equilibrium becomes unbreakable. Freedom emerges when validation disappears. Reflection anchors permanence. Each night, conduct is reviewed. Deviation corrected. Standard renewed. Reflection prevents drift. The disciplined refuse drift. Precision tightens continually. Indulgence fades. The old self saw discipline as deprivation. The new sees indulgence as decay. Excess weakens clarity. Simplicity sustains strength. Consumption becomes minimal. Speech becomes deliberate. Movement becomes intentional. Restraint is devotion to order. Noise becomes foreign. Shallow company loses appeal. Silence protects clarity. Environment mirrors inner structure. Peace becomes weapon and shelter. Action no longer seeks outcome. Duty replaces desire. Success and failure serve refinement equally. Motivation is transcended. Conduct becomes nature. Judgment dissolves. Compassion replaces frustration.